Welcome to the deep dive. This is where we take those big buzzy books, the ones everyone seems to be talking about, promising to change everything, and we don't just skim the surface.
No, we definitely don't. We pull them apart, challenge the core ideas, see what actually holds up under scrutiny.
Exactly. And today we are plunging headfirst into a massive one, a book that's truly soaked into the business world and beyond. Simon Sinek's Start with Why.
Oh, yeah, you can't escape it. The TED Talk, the quotes, the whole golden circle thing,
Yeah?
it's everywhere.
It really is. But here's the angle we want to explore today, something maybe a little unexpected. What if this whole why phenomenon isn't just, a nice aspiration or a catchy slogan?
What if it's actually wired into us,
Yeah.
like biologically?
Precisely. A deep blueprint for how humans actually behave, how organizations succeed or fail spectacularly, explaining everything from huge corporate flameouts to, social movements that catch fire. We're here to challenge the easy answers and really unpack it.
It's a great point. Because Sinek isn't just peddling feel-good philosophy here. He's grounding it, or trying to, in brain science, how we're fundamentally built.
Right. He puts forward this really provocative idea. We think we're rational decision makers, all logic and spreadsheets. But the truth is way more primal, more gut level, emotional.
And understanding that gap between the logical brain and the feeling brain, that's supposedly the real key, the secret sauce for loyalty, inspiration, success that actually lasts.
Okay, so let's jump right in with something pretty controversial from the book. He basically says you can have everything going for you, like all the ingredients.
Money, the best people, tons of public interest.
Yeah, even what seems like the best product out there. And you can still just crash and burn, completely fail.
Uses that great example of Samuel Pierpont Langley, right? Turn of the 20th century.
Exactly. Esteemed scientist, massive government grant, like $50,000 back then, which was huge.
Oh, resources you could dream of.
That best
Minds aiming to build the first airplane.
And total failure. Crashed it. Twice. Into the Potomac.
Meanwhile, you've got these two bicycle mechanics.
The Wright brothers. In Dayton, Ohio. Almost no money, no fancy degrees, zero government help.
And they quietly just did it. Manned flight.
Sinek's point cuts deep. It wasn't about what they were building. Langley was trying to build the same thing. It was all about why.
That difference is huge. And it forces you to ask, why do we buy things? Why do we choose one brand over another, even if it's not logically the best or cheapest?
That it just feels right thing.
Exactly. That feeling. Sinek argues that's the secret. That's how Apple exploded, even though others were making computers too. It's why people marched with Dr. King, facing incredible danger. Not just because his arguments made sense intellectually.
But because they believed what he believed. Viscerally.
That shared belief, that feeling, that's the core of why some leaders and organizations inspire this fierce loyalty, build movements, and others just fade away, no matter how much money they throw at it.
Okay, let's really break down this core concept. Sinek's whole framework rests on this model he calls the golden circle. It sounds simple, almost too simple maybe.
It does look simple, just three concentric circles like a target.
Yeah.
But it's supposed to map how we think, act, communicate individuals, companies, everyone.
Right. If you get this, a lot of his other points start to make sense.
Okay, so picture that target. The outermost ring, the biggest one, is the what?
Super straightforward, what a company actually does, their products, their services.
For Apple, it's computers, phones, right?
Yeah.
A law firm represents clients. Grocery store sells food. Tangible stuff, easy to see.
Then you move one circle in, that's the HOW.
This is where companies explain how they're different, or, how they think they're better.
Their unique process, their values, their proprietary approach.
Yeah, their secret sauce. For Apple, maybe it's design, the user experience, that whole ecosystem. For the law firm, maybe it's their client focus, their pedigree, whatever. It's about differentiation.
Makes sense. But the real magic, according to Sinek, is dead center, the bullseye.
The WHY. This isn't about what you do, but why you do it. Your purpose, your cause, your core belief. Why does your organization even exist beyond making money?
So for Apple, he argues it wasn't just make great computers, it was this deeper thing about challenging the status quo, empowering individuals.
Thinking differently.
Exactly. For Dr. King, it wasn't just about specific laws, but this profound belief in equality, injustice. It's the core conviction driving everything.
Okay, but here's the critical part. It's not just what the circles are, it's the direction you communicate them in.
Right. Most businesses, the default mode is outside in.
What? Then maybe how W, then? If you're lucky, a fuzzy WHY tacked on at the end.
Think about a typical car ad. New sedan, great mileage, leather seats, awesome safety features. Buy it.
All what's. Maybe a bit of how in the features.
Sinek argues this speaks mostly to our neocortex, the rational, analytical part of the brain, language, facts, figures,
And what does that lead to?
transactions maybe, but not loyalty. Sinek calls it manipulation, not inspiration.
Ouch. Okay, so what's the alternative?
The inspiring approach is inside out. Start with WHY, then explain how to W, then reveal what.
So flip it completely.
Yeah. Think classic Apple messaging. Everything we do, we believe in challenging the status quo. We believe in thinking differently. WHY, the way we do that is by making beautiful, simple, intuitive products. How carroty. And we happen to make great computers and phones. What? Want to join us?
Ah, okay. That lands differently. It's not about the specs anymore.
It's about a shared belief, an identity. And Sinek claims this hits a different part of the brain entirely.
And this isn't just like a marketing gimmick. He ties it straight to biology, the brain structure.
Right. Two key parts involved. First, that neocortex we mentioned. Newest part, outer layer. Rational, analytical, understands the what and how W. Language lives here.
It can list all the features, compare spreadsheets.
Exactly. But then there's the limbic brain. Deeper, older, more primal.
This is where feelings live, right?
Yeah.
Trust, loyalty, fear, excitement.
All of it. And here's the kicker. Sinek really hammers home. The limbic brain is responsible for all our behavior, all decision-making, every choice, big or small.
Okay.
But, and this is huge, the limbic brain has zero capacity for language.
Whoa. Okay. So that's why.
That's why we say things just feel right. You make a decision, maybe instantly connect with someone or choose one brand over another, and you can't quite articulate why. The feeling came first, from the limbic brain.
And then your neocortex scrambles to make up logical reasons after the fact.
Precisely. Rationalizations. Oh, it was cheaper, or it had this feature. But the actual decision driver was nonverbal, purely emotional.
That blows up a lot of traditional marketing then, asking people why they bought something.
Yeah, you're asking the wrong part of the brain. You get the rationalizations, not the real reason. Businesses assume rational decisions based on facts.
But we're fundamentally driven by feelings, trust, belief. Then we justify it. Wow.
So communicating inside out, starting with WHY, bypasses that analytical filter.
And talks directly to the limbic system, the decision-making part.
Right. And that's how you create that deep, almost tribal belonging. You attract people who believe what you believe.
Like the Apple fanatics or the Harley riders getting tattoos.
It's not just about the product. The logo becomes a symbol of their values, their identity, freedom, rebellion, being American, whatever it is for them.
So that loyalty. People pay more, put up with inconvenience.
And they turn down better offers.
Yeah.
Because they're buying into a belief system, not just a thing.
And this allows companies to stretch beyond their original products, right?
Totally. Look at Dell. They were the computer company. What defined?
Yeah.
When they tried MP3 players or PDAs.
It felt weird. Didn't fit.
Right. Consumers couldn't connect Dell, the computer maker, with these other things. But Apple, with its WY of challenge the status quo.
They could jump into music with iPod, phones with iPhone, watches.
And it all made sense because people weren't just buying the what, they were buying the WHY, buying a piece of that identity.
Okay. That's a compelling case for the power of WHY. But let's poke at it a bit. It sounds great, almost idealistic.
Time for the Antivision segment. Let's play devil's advocate.
Is starting with WHY, is it a luxury? Something only fancy startups or established giants with deep pockets can afford?
Yeah, I mean, what about the average small business owner just trying to make payroll next week? Does the WHY really matter when you're fighting for survival?
Does the book define success too narrowly? It focuses on this long-term, loyalty-driven success. But what about just staying alive? Those short-term tactical wins you absolutely need?
Seriously, the stats are brutal. Like 90% of small businesses fail early on. If you're that struggling coffee shop owner, maybe running a discount is the most important thing right now, even if it's not pure WHY-driven inspiration.
It feels like the WHY is a nice to have when the house isn't on fire.
Which leads right into Sinek's weirdly fascinating take on manipulation. He actually says manipulations aren't necessarily a bad thing, admits they work.
Wait, what? If they work, why are they bad? That sounds contradictory.
Well, his argument is they get you short-term results, transactions, but they don't build loyalty, and they have hidden long-term costs. They erode trust.
Okay, let's break down these manipulations. We see them everywhere. First up, price.
The classic, drop prices low enough, people buy. End-of-season sales, Black Friday.
But Sinek calls it heroin. Feels good initially, that sales bump.
Yeah.
But it's addictive. Customers expect low prices, margins shrink, you end up in a race to the bottom, you become a commodity.
Like insurance or mobile plans often feel. He mentions Walmart's history, huge success built on low prices, but that relentless cost-cutting also arguably led to scandals, hurting their reputation.
Promotions. Buy one, get one free. Cashback offers. Looks at value.
Right. He uses GM in the 90s as an example. Heavy cashback incentives. Sales went up.
But profits tanked. They were losing hundreds of dollars per car. And when they tried to stop the incentives,
Sales crashed, customers were hooked, became cashback junkies.
and this category also includes sneakier stuff, like breakage companies making billions off unused gift cards.
Or inertia, making it ridiculously hard to cancel subscriptions you don't use anymore, like that Fabletics example.
These prey on our psychology, they don't earn our loyalty.
Okay, what about fear? That feels like a big one.
Probably the most powerful. Straight to our survival instincts. This is your brain on drugs. Buy insurance before it's too late.
Politicians use it constantly. Dire warnings about security, the economy, it creates urgency, bypasses rational thought.
Then the flip side, aspirations. If fear pushes you away, aspirations pull you towards something desirable,
Get rich quick, look amazing, find true love.
tempting us with ideal versions of ourselves. Sinek points out the January gym membership spike 12%. But how many are still going in March?
Not many. Aspirational messages are great for getting started, but terrible for lasting change or loyalty. They promise magic.
And then there's social pressure. Can't ignore that one.
4 out of 5 dentists recommend. Celebrity endorsements, influencers telling you what to buy, think, wear.
It works because we want to fit in. We fear being wrong or left out. Sinek talks about the shift from huge TV audiences like Seinfeld to individual TikTokers or YouTubers getting massive views.
Yeah, that stat about 86% of young people wanting to be influencers. Wow, the pressure is immense.
Finally, novelty, often dressed up as innovation.
The shiny new object drives temporary sales but doesn't really change anything fundamental. He uses the Motorola RAZR phone.
Sold millions. Looked cool, thin metal case.
Yeah.
But was it truly innovative?
Sinek says no, just novelty. True innovation, like Edison's light bulb or the iPhone, changes industries, shifts power dynamics. Novelty is a sugar rush. Real innovation comes from WHY.
Okay, so considering all these manipulations and the push for WHY, who does this advice actually hurt the most?
Well, definitely companies stuck in those super competitive, low-margin industries. They might have to use price cuts or promotions just to survive, even knowing the long-term cost. It's a tough spot.
Yeah, the ideal of WHY feels distant when you're just trying to keep the doors open.
It could also hurt founders who are just brilliant executors, the what and how people, the engineers, the operators.
They might build amazing things, run tight ships.
But if they never connect with or articulate a deeper WHY, they risk burnout. They might struggle to inspire people beyond their immediate team, limiting growth, and maybe feel unfulfilled themselves.
And maybe the biggest hit is for organizations that define themselves entirely by what they do.
The railroad example is classic. We're in the railroad business, focused only on tracks and trains. So when planes and highways came along, they were toast. If they'd seen themselves as being in the mass transportation business, why oh why?
They might own the airlines today.
Exactly. The music industry did the same, defining themselves by CD's what instead of distributing music or connecting artists and fans, WY.
And missed the boat on digital music, letting Apple swoop in, defining yourself by what makes you vulnerable.
Which brings us to the human cost, the empathy dive. How do these what-driven, manipulation-heavy businesses actually affect people?
Sinek argues it's pretty damaging. That focus on metrics over meaning, what gets measured gets done, it takes a toll.
He tells that story about Christina Harbridge in debt collection. She started out wanting to be kind, but the system rewarded harshness. Bonuses were tied only to money collected what?
So good people started acting against their values just to hit the numbers.
Leads to burnout, cynicism, people feeling like cogs, doing work they don't believe in. Huge disconnect.
And think about Gordon Bethune describing Continental Airlines before he turned it around. A crummy place to work.
Employees were surly, ashamed of the company. The whole culture was fear-based, short-term survival. Awful for employees, awful for customers.
And for us as consumers, it's just stressful.
Yeah.
Overwhelming choices, constant ads, manipulative tactics.
Dr. Peter Wybrow's American Mania Sinek cites it, argues this relentless more literally makes us sick. Ulcers, depression, anxiety.
You feel hounded, cynical about all marketing. It's exhausting. You just want to tune it all out.
It really is, like being constantly bombarded.
But then look at the flip side. The impact of genuine inspiration, of a clear WHY. Bethune at Continental, he didn't focus on customers first.
Right. He focused on employees first. Believed happy employees lead to happy customers, lead to happy shareholders.
Made the plane your office, got rid of intimidating security, gave bonuses to everyone for on-time performance.
And sent separate checks, symbolizing thank you. That builds real pride, real ownership.
And the customer loyalty that comes from that. Southwest Airlines after 9/11.
Incredible story. Facing bankruptcy like other airlines, but customers were sending them checks, saying, you've been good to me, let me help you.
That's not loyalty you can buy with a cheap fare. That's a partnership, built on years of treating employees and customers right, driven by their WHI. That's why they were profitable for so long.
And that give him a cathedral analogy, so powerful.
Two stonemasons, same work. Ask one what he's doing, laying bricks.
But ask the other, I'm building a cathedral.
Why do I? Same monotonous job, totally different perspective. That sense of purpose transforms work, boosts loyalty, productivity. People feel part of something bigger.
Okay, shifting gears slightly, what might Sinek have missed? Or maybe what ideas are hiding in plain sight, not fully credited, the what they missed segment?
Well, he brilliantly connects the WHY to the limbic brain, the difficulty verbalizing feelings. But is that totally new?
Right. It echoes centuries of philosophy, doesn't it? Plato's charioteer, Hume saying reason is passion's slave. This idea that emotion and intuition often drive us more than logic.
Sinek's genius is maybe less in pure invention and more in repackaging. He takes this ancient wisdom about intuition and purpose.
Gives it a biological spin, a clear framework, makes it actionable for business leaders today.
Exactly. Concepts like authenticity, purpose. He gives them a modern, almost scientific-sounding wrapper that resonates. He makes old ideas strategically relevant now.
And that little linguistic quirk he mentions, art before science. Why do we always say art and science, not the other way around?
His suggestion is, maybe it's our limbic brain whispering. The WHY, the art of leading, comes before the HRW, the science of doing. Feeling before logic. Kind of cool.
Then there are those market research blind spots, the German automakers and the cup holders.
Hilarious. Rational engineers asking rational questions, missing the obvious emotional need of American commuters. People couldn't articulate, I need a place for my big gulp, but it drove their decisions.
Shows you can't always just ask people their WHY. You have to observe, intuit.
And his celery test concept. A clear WHY filters your decisions. If your WHY is health, you pick celery, not M&Ms. Simple filter.
Which totally challenges the idea of universal best practices. Ping pong tables might fit one company's WHY, but be totally wrong for another.
Like VW trying to sell that super luxury $70 K Phaeton. Great car, maybe, but totally failed the celery test for Volkswagen, the people's car. Didn't align with their WHY.
Then there's the whole idea of how innovations actually spread. He touches on Betamax versus VHS.
Betamax was technically better picture quality.
But VHS won. Why? Better isn't always better. It's about diffusion, adoption, network effects, appealing to the why of those first buyers.
Which leads straight to the law of diffusion of innovations. Rogers, Geoffrey Moore's Crossing the Chasm. This is huge.
Explains how ideas spread, not evenly. Starts with tiny group of innovators, 2.5%, then early adopters, 13.5%.
These first 15 to 18%, they're the key. They buy on belief, on WHY. They don't need proof, they want potential. They'll pay more, put up with bugs just to be part of it.
And you only reach the mass market, the majority, after you win over that first group.
And TiVo. Oh, TiVo, the tragic example.
Amazing product. Pause live TV, skip commercials. Revolutionary. Lots of funding.
But they marketed what it did features to the mainstream, the cautious majority.
Instead of marketing WHY total control, reclaiming your time to those innovators and early adopters who craved that empowerment.
Ignored the law of diffusion. Result. By 2002, the joke was more homes have outhouses than TiVos. They never crossed the chasm. Focused on features, not feelings.
And finally, the symbolism of brands, the swag test.
Love this one. Why tattoo a Harley logo, but use some tech company's free t-shirt as a pajama top?
Because the Harley logo means something about you. It symbolizes your values, freedom, rebellion, whatever. It's part of your identity.
Brands with a clear WHY become extensions of who we are. You buy the belief, not just the bike.
Apple's 1984 ad, the Think Different campaign. Pure WHY. No products shown, just a feeling, a belief, challenging norms, empowering individuals.
Their stuff became symbols for people who saw themselves that way. When an ad speaks to you, It's hitting your limbic brain, resonating with your own WHY.
Okay. We've dug into the insights, the critiques. Feels like time for our mini debate. Let's focus on that celery test.
All right, I'm ready. Let's hash it out.
So the celery test sounds great in theory. Only do things aligned with your WHY. If your WHY is health, only celery and oat milk. Beautifully simple.
Consistent, authentic.
What about the messy, frantic reality of actually running a business, especially a small one? Sometimes you absolutely have to make that chocolate cake decision, right?
Like cutting prices just to make rent. Taking a client who isn't a perfect fit but pays the bills.
Exactly. Just to survive. Isn't the celery test a bit idealistic? A luxury? Does it ignore the sheer hustle needed to avoid becoming one of those failure statistics? Feels a little disconnected from the grind sometimes.
That is a really critical point, and yeah, it can sound idealistic. But Sinek does actually address it. He doesn't say never eat chocolate cake.
Oh, what does he say?
He basically says that's fine. The celery test still applies. If you want a pizza chocolate cake, go right ahead.
The crucial thing isn't never deviating.
It's doing it with awareness.
Exactly.
Wow.
You know it's a short-term fix, a tactical move, maybe not perfectly aligned with the core WHY. You know it's a sugar rush, and you'll probably have to work a bit harder later to, like, detox from it or correct the course.
Okay. So the danger isn't one slice of cake.
It's making a habit of it. Too many chocolate cakes, too many decisions that aren't aligned. And eventually, your WHY gets diluted. Trust erodes. People get confused about what you stand for. Makes sense. It's about consciousness, not rigid purity.
And remember Christina Harbridge's debt collection agency, Bridgeport Financial. They proved you can apply this even in tough situations. By measuring WHY, focusing on respect, sending thank you cards, they got better short-term results, 300% higher collections, and repeat business.
Wow, so even the chocolate cake decisions can be approached through the lens of WHY. It's not about perfection, it's about intention.
Right. Maintaining authenticity over the long haul, even through the necessary detours. Being conscious of the trade-offs.
Okay, that adds some important nuance, which brings us nicely to our hot take section. What is really going on with this whole start with why movement? Sinek describes this thing he calls the split.
Yeah, like a corporate disease, a slow drift away from purpose.
He argues that as organizations get big and successful, they often lose touch with their original WHY. The founder's passion gets diluted by bureaucracy, by scale.
Decisions stop being gut-driven, purpose-led.
And become purely rational, data-driven, obsessed with short-term targets. People forget the cathedral, they just lay bricks.
Walmart, after Sam Walton, is his big example. He argues they confuse their original WHY serving people, bringing value with their HW low prices.
Trading inspiration for manipulation, leading to scandals even when they tried good things later, because the core felt hollow.
That's the idea. Microsoft under Ballmer, too, became just a device and software company obsessed with beating Apple what? Losing the original WHY of empowering the everyday person with tools, WHY.
Adela's big job has been trying to recapture that purpose.
Starbucks, after Schultz first left, lost the third space, WHY, became just about fast coffee what? Struggled until he came back to refocus on the experience, the WHY.
Dell, AOL, similar stories. Companies that started with inspiration, got big, lost their WHY, and faltered or faded. The split seems common.
And the book makes that crucial distinction between achievement and success.
Achievement is hitting goals, sales targets, promotions, tangible stuff. The what?
Success is different. It's a feeling, a state of being. Comes from pursuing your WHY.
Sinek says lots of people achieve a lot but don't feel successful because they chase the what instead of the WHY. Chasing metrics, not meaning.
And that relentless chase for achievement, disconnected from purpose.
Yeah.
Isn't that basically hustle culture?
Totally. More. More money, status, stuff.
But Sinek and others like Dr. Wybrow in American Mania suggest it leads straight to burnout, stress, anxiety, illness. Start with why basically a stealth critique of capitalism's focus on endless growth over human well-being.
It kind of feels like it, doesn't it? An argument for purpose over just profit and productivity hacks.
So the lingering question, is this book brilliant insight or just really well-packaged fluff, maybe ghost-written? Or is it genuinely Sinek's wisdom earned through struggle?
He does talk about his own journey, right? Losing his passion, hitting rock bottom around 2005, feeling like a failure despite looking successful.
And then having this epiphany, drawing on anthropology, biology, realizing his misery wasn't about what or how, but because he'd forgotten his WHY.
It feels more like masterful synthesis. Maybe not entirely original ideas, but he connected dots from philosophy, biology, business.
Yeah, rebranding timeless concepts
Mhm.
like purpose and authenticity in a way that clicks for a modern business audience, giving it a clear framework, making it actionable, that's a skill in itself.
So stepping back for the meta take, what does the massive popularity of start with? Why tell us about right now?
Well, in a world drowning in information, cynicism, short-term thinking,
Yeah.
it offers a powerful counter-narrative, right? A call for authenticity, long-term impact, purpose beyond profit. People are clearly hungry for that.
It feels like an antidote to the constant manipulation and pressure. But will it last? Will it be a foundational text or just another business fad that fades?
Will it itself suffer the split? Good question. Only time will tell if the message can stick in the face of relentless short-term economic pressures.
One of the most moving parts for me was the idea of competing against yourself. That story of Ben Coleman, the runner with cerebral palsy.
Oh, incredible. Always last, always struggling, falling, but never quitting.
And the other runners, finished long ago, come back to run him across the finish line. He inspires them not by beating them, but by his sheer effort against his own limits. His personal WHY.
It totally flips the script on business competition, doesn't it? Instead of constantly trying to beat rivals, what if you just focused on being better than you were yesterday, serving your WHY more authentically?
Would that actually lead to more innovation, more support, more impact? Focusing inward on purpose, not outward on rivals. It's a radical thought.
And ultimately, Sinek says the best organizations operate like movements. They inspire people to contribute, to advocate, not because they're paid extra, but because they believe.
Taps into that deep human need for belonging, for shared purpose, especially now when things feel so fragmented, building community around belief.
It's a reminder that belief can be just as powerful, maybe more powerful than the balance sheet.
Okay, as we wrap up this deep dive, let's leave our listeners with a final thought. Here's a what if prompt.
What if the relentless pursuit of more features, more market share, more profit without a clear WHY is actually making us less productive, less innovative, and ultimately less fulfilled?
Chew on that one. And for a quirky related recommendation, maybe look into stories of groups who achieved impossible things with no resources, purely on shared purpose. Shackleton's Endurance Crew, early social movements.
Or for the philosophical angle, Viktor Frankl's man's search for meaning is always profound, digs deep into finding purpose even in the darkest times.
So, what's your hot take on a lightning? Start with why. Is WHY truly everything? Or does the what still rule the world, practically speaking? Let us know in the comments below.
We really want to hear what you think. And if you enjoyed digging deep with us today, challenging the conventional wisdom,
Please hit that like button, subscribe, and join us again on the deep dive to keep escaping the echo chamber.